2 points, the worth of gold that have fallen into the hands of the Chennai Super Kings. The pitches are turning slower, and CSK are ending on the right side of the result as midway stage of the IPL goes past. 20-run win against the Sunrisers Hyderabad for MS Dhoni's side, 2 much-needed points. We look back at that game that had plenty of incident on Whirlpool Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout, powered by Dell. At halftime, Deepdas Gupta and Ian Bishop said it is something to bowl at. They weren't quite sure if it was par or if it was below par. And it's 20 runs too good.
Yeah, it was. Obviously, you're losing early wickets because SRH is a top-heavy side. They lost Bairstow and Warner very early. That kind of set the tone for the rest of the innings. And we know SRH and the middle order is kind of brittle. So it was always going to be tough with early wickets.
In what you said at our mid-inning show, Bish, was perhaps a few runs below par. Where has this chase been decided for you?
At the top, I think it was 40 of the power play for SRH, and then they lost wickets. Bairstow couldn't fire. He couldn't pick the pace of the pitch, and they bowled well to him. They lost Warner. Then they lost Manish Pandey, and we talk about this being a top-heavy team. A lot of credit to CSK. Let's not take anything away from them. But SRH have some work to do. You talked, RK, you said, I wonder if Nabi should play because Nabi adds that ballast, that power at the bottom. But if you put Nabi down the bottom there and Williamson, you see what Williamson can do. So it really is a difficult situation.
Yeah, I guess that's the point now. No one's going to touch Williamson now. You know how valuable he is. This is a different kind of game, though, Deep. It's not like Warner, Bairstow, Williamson all went and you knew SRH are vulnerable. Here, they needed a middle order to perhaps step up and just partner Kane Williamson. It didn't happen. Vijay Shankar's got a different role, came in after a Priyam Garg. And year after year, that seems to be the conversation. Sunrisers have a soft middle order.
True. And I wouldn't say I was surprised, but I would rather have someone like a Vijay Shankar when you're chasing down a total. I know Priyam is wonderful. He's a very, very good talent, but under pressure, I'd rather go to my seasoned pro and give him some extra deliveries, because I think if SRH need to go ahead in this tournament and go far in this tournament, they will have to bank on their middle order a little more. And someone like Vijay Shankar is good enough to bat at 4 for India. I think he's good enough to bat at 5 for SRH.
Yeah, I spoke in that mid-inning show too, Bish, about what sort of approach do you take when you're chasing a 160 score. And if anything, like Deep mentioned, David Warner started having a little more responsibly, conservatively, pick your word. Did you get the impression in the power play that there was a sense of panic or a sense of recklessness? The Warner wicket, the Manish Pandey run out. Is that where was that ever in your mind when you looked at that first few overs?
I wouldn't say recklessness. I want to go back to a word that Deep used earlier in our broadcast where he talked about intent, and that's where I judge players. In one or two conversations Deep and I have had throughout this tournament, it's not so much what a player does or doesn't achieve, it's the intent. Bairstow showed intent. Even last night, Virat Kohli was showing intent. He just could not get the ball away. So I don't think it was recklessness, but I think they were stifled and they couldn't either pick the pace of the pitch or the quality of the bowling to get the type of start that they want. Although Williamson was the one guy who was able to find a gear that suited if he could get help.
Yeah, and he didn't, and therefore Sunrisers have fallen 20 short. Dhoni kept us guessing. It's nice to see every day a captain throws us something which we can talk about. Deepak Char, 4 overs on the trot. Piyush Chawla doesn't get an over till the 16th. Just a couple of overs to Shardul, a couple of overs or 3 and eventually to Bravo. That was interesting.
That was, and if you've noticed with MSD and his captaincy style, every time the ball's turning a bit and he has those spinners with him, he wants to control the game. Then it becomes really kind of easy for him because that's his style of captaincy. Especially with spinners, he had 3 spinning options, but he actually bowled just 1 over of Piyush Chawla. It's not that Piyush Chawla did not bowl enough. It's just that he knew that he had that option. And he went with his gut, the first 7 overs, 4 from Deepak Chahar, 3 from... This is so typically MSD, where you stifle for runs, you kind of choke the batting unit, and then you get your spinners on. I think that's so MSD kind, and it was wonderful to see.
Yeah, I know that Tom Moody said when we were doing an analysis of the CSK squad and why they weren't clicking, Bish, that they pick a squad essentially for Chepauk and they pick it on those conditions and they know what they need to do there to win as many home games and nick a few on the road. Now at the halfway point, pitches seem to be turning or getting slower. Will CSK become a more potent force over the next half of the IPL?
Well, they'll certainly hope so. It's again, when you have the extra bowling options as CSK have, and we talked last night about the extra bowling option at Sharjah as well that RCB had, he can afford to do that. He can afford to play it by ear. He can afford to say, well, I don't need to use Piyush all that much tonight. I'll give him one here. I won't give Bravo his full quota. It is a really lovely thing to have. The pitch was slower. I don't think it was as challenging as I thought it might have been, but there was one situation. I don't know if you guys saw it. Williamson came down to Bairstow the ball before he got out because Bairstow was trying to stay back and punch Jadeda to the offside. And I saw Williamson come down the pitch, and I could see with the motioning of his hands him saying, "Watch it. That's risky to do." The very next ball, he did the same thing again and lost his wicket. So these are intriguing little matchups.
Sure. Well, when Dhoni, the captain, gets involved, when he seems to have a good day of the runs with the bat and then also with his spinners, senses conditions, adapts, his bowling changes, takes control, you know that CSK eventually have a say in the eventual result. There's another thing that Dhoni did manage to achieve, which was change Paul Rifle's mind. So just before I go to a 5-point review, let me check with Deep Das Gupta and Ian Bishop what they made of what turned out to be the second ball of the 19th over from Shardul Thakur. You know what, you saw it, we saw it. So what happened, Deep?
Well, I thought Rifles was going for that. I mean, he was going for the wide, but then something happened and he changed his mind. So he was halfway there. He was almost there, but then he changed his mind. And what intrigued me was I think he got on the two-way thing with the third umpire as well. I don't know what was that for then. I mean, but yeah, sorry.
How do I get out of this, perhaps? No, but on a very serious note, Bish, it's a key point in the game. You're looking at a wide just before that. Rashid Khan's getting a few boundaries away. That sort of incident, what do you make of it?
Okay, I am someone who's very sympathetic to the umpires because I think it's a difficult job. But tonight I'll say that Rifle made a mistake. He looked up. It was a wide. It should have been called a wide. He started calling a wide. He looked up. He saw Dhoni and he changed his mind.
Yeah, it still happens, doesn't it? Umpires, even elite panel umpires of high profile like Paul Rifle, CNMS Dhoni, and perhaps there is an element of intimidation, isn't there?
I don't know whether intimidation is the right word to use or not. I think it's too strong a word. But yeah, you kind of have a second thought about it. You know, obviously, initial reaction was that was a wide, and obviously we saw that in the replay as well. It was outside the tram line, and he saw MSD's reaction to it and changed his mind for whatever reason he did, but he did change his mind.
Yeah, let's be fair here. Dhoni's entitled to react how he chooses to. He's the field captain, he's the keeper. It's the umpire who looks weak at the end of it when he's had to retract a call and he doesn't wrap himself in glory. David Warner was off his seat. The only thing he didn't do was what Dhoni did a year back. Just walk onto the field and challenge that. That should have been made for a real spectacle. But anyway,
you see why I'm sympathetic to the umpires, because the only time we notice these guys is when they make an error. Do we then balance that by giving them sufficient praise when they do a good job? So that's why I feel Rifle had a boo-boo there tonight, but that's why I feel we need to keep a special eye deep, for me personally, on these umpires. And when they do something good, let's laud them and praise them for a good job.
Yeah, point well taken. You tend to say if you don't notice an umpire, he's done a good job. Right, and if you do notice an umpire, well, then that's the conversation that invariably does come up. So fair point, but yeah, Paul Rifle, it's not been his brightest day in his fairly illustrious career of international umpiring. So that's something to take away. Let's go to our 5-point review now as we look at the more significant factors you think that did affect this game. In fairness, the game was heavily tilting towards the Super Kings when that white call was made. So let's go to our 5-point review, and let's start with the toss, Deep. Dhoni's decision, firstly winning it, decision to bat first as against these tricky chases CSK win power. How significant was that?
I think very significant for a couple of reasons. One, obviously, they've struggled chasing down totals. So from that perspective, batting first made a lot of sense. Also, the fact that he, on a track that is kind of getting more tired and slowing down as the game would progress, I think he likes slowish tracks. I mean, he likes to control the game with his spinners. And I think that, again, is a very, very important aspect, and which also, I mean, batting first meant that he would have that advantage by his side as well.
Fish, CSK batting first, no pressure of the chase, significant?
Yeah, big time. First of all, CSK, as Deep said, batting first. They haven't been able to do that all tournament. And then the use of his spinners with the team that they picked allowed him to mix spin and mix the seam, and the seam bowlers bowl cutters. So absolutely the right decision. The one thing that you can't overlook, though, is 46 dot balls to CSK when they batted. They can't afford to be doing that going forward.
All right, that having been said, Dave, there was improvisation. Sam Curran at the top. There was intent, at least from the likes of Curran and from Ravindra Jadeja, Dhoni towards the end. Deep, thoughts?
My thought is, I think MS as a captain is at his best when he backs his gut, right? And we've seen that before. There have been numerous number of matches where he's played a bowler, hasn't bowled enough. I mean, I remember, I think Ashwin played a game, he didn't bowl even a single over. I think it was Bhaji or Ashwin, one of them. I think MSD is at his best when he backs his gut. And I think today was, again, a good example of that. He just, backed himself, what he thought was going to happen on that surface, and the resources that he had. And I think that was again why he's such a successful captain.
Bish?
Sorry, I lost the question. Sorry.
That's all right. The intent and the improvisation, at least some differences.
Yeah.
Curran at the top, Jadeja.
Yeah. Well, people talk about the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So we have to give them credit for Sam Curran and doing what he did. At the top, left-handedness, I think, was a key thing. As much as the intent, it was the left-handedness of Curran at the top, but also Jadeja's ball striking at the back end that really gave them a total. While it was par, it was something they could work with.
All right. Bish, next point on Dhoni's choice of bowlers. Interesting matchup there.
Yeah. First thing, it's like when you're playing a team and you have a good batting depth, you have an extra batsman in your lineup. It allows the top order to play freely, even though that extra batsman may not get a knock sometimes. It allows them to play freely. Similarly with bowling, Dhoni has the options and he can just make his choices as he goes along. We can talk about the ball holding up on the surface, but I also like the Yorkers at the end, the Yorkers and the wide Yorkers. Yorkers at leg stump from Bravo, wide Yorkers from Taku, and even at times Bravo with the wide Yorkers. The Yorkers still good money, value for money in this moment.
Deep?
I mean, listen, as I mentioned before, I think he just saw the situation. He knew he had enough elbow room with the extra bowler there, and he played it. I mean, that's how he leads his side. He's big on kind of choking the batting unit, which he did again, and he went with 7 overs of seam bowling right up front because the bowlers were looking good. They were doing their job. So even though they weren't, I mean, they did pick wickets as well, but the whole idea is of MSD's captaincy is choking in the first 6-7 overs, get a wicket, brilliant. Otherwise, then you have the spinners coming in and doing their job. So I think, it was like what we've seen MSD do before as well, especially on surfaces where the ball turns a bit and slows.
All right, our next point is no support for Kane Williamson. Bish, either at the top or in that middle order.
Well, that top. They didn't fire tonight. Bairstow Warner partnership didn't fire tonight, but we know that has fired before and it will fire again. But Kane Williamson, the run out as well, was not helpful to them with Manish Pandey. But Kane is invaluable in that lineup. Where the biggest problem is below Kane Williamson.
Deep?
Yeah, I mean, listen, as mentioned, I mean, you need to look in that number 5, 6, 7. You've got to give a proper role to all these youngsters, Priyam Garg and Vijay Shankar, who's been around for a while, or Samad if he plays. There has to be more clarity of what is expected of them. But Williamson, I mean, again, a masterclass. Listen, he hit 7 boundaries, right? And if you leave aside those 7 boundaries and 7 deliveries, he got what, 29 of 32. So that is important. That's what great players do. Look at Virat the other day. He played only what, 5 dot balls in that innings of 90. Same with Williamson today. I mean, 7 boundaries, but the way they rotated like was phenomenal.
All right, that's a wrap. Thank you very much, Deep Das Gupta and Ian Bishop. The Chennai Super Kings. I love it when they've given us these new talking points and they've improvised and they've given us a bit of Dhoni as well, with as captain and as keeper and having a little say also in the umpire's decisions. It's always fun. That's the best part of the IPL. And let's hope we see plenty more of it, because the league table will reflect that CSK are catching up with others on 6 points. And it's something that they need to keep doing now if they are to challenge the likes of Mumbai, Delhi and secure a playoff spot. We'll be back tomorrow for build-up, 7 p.m. IST. So do join us then for our pre-match show on Whirlpool Presents ESPN Cricket Footy 20 Time Out, powered by Dell.